Alright everybody, continuing on with our arthropod journey, we're looking at hexapods. So this is a cool group, and hex is involved, which means 6. Let's take a peek here. Hexapoda, the name comes from 6 legs. So hexagon, right, 6-sided figure. Poda means leg, or like a leg like appendage, right, podiatrist sort of thing. And so we can see that's where we're at now. So we've covered the other arthropods and groups in there, and now we're finally down to the hexapods. And so with this, you can see some derived characteristics of this group. They have tagmata, they have 6 legs, and they have their tagmata are the head, thorax, and abdomen. And then compare that to the chelicerates, which is head 2. Then they also have a tracheal system for respiration, which we'll go into in just a second. So alright, 6 legs, bam. Compare that to a chelicerate, which has 8, so it's a big difference. 3 tagmata, head, thorax, abdomen, except labeled in the picture. You have the head region, the middle region, and the end region. And they also have spiracles, and a trachea. Hey, so do we. For gas exchange. So let's take a peek at some of those things, these special features. But within the hexapods, there's one particular class we're going to look at, and that is Insecta. Insecta is one of the most successful, if not the most successful, class on the planet. Like, this thing moves. It does. Super successful. Many adaptations, many species, many high population numbers. They're doing well for the most part. And so one of the reasons why they're so successful is their sensory abilities. They can pick up on all kinds of stuff in their environment. And so it's, just there. So they can fly. They have sensory perceptions. They can, pick up on, chemical cues of some kind. Their eyes are so well equipped where they can just visually see things and avoid predation or avoid death in some of those ways, because they just pick up on so many different things surrounding them. And look at this Joker's eye on the right. Look at that thing. It's a big old eye. You can see a lot of stuff in front of it. Also, wings. They're a pretty big deal. The power of flight. You can just get up and zip on out of town. They have that ability. And not a whole lot of things we've talked about so far can fly. Because I'm trying to think, and I can't think of really anything that can. So, that's pretty cool. Power of flight. It's a big deal. You can disperse. Almost you're limited by energy and lifespan at this point with insects. Some of them don't live very long, but that's a big deal. And then also, one of the last ones involves metamorphosis. And so they have a complete metamorphosis. And so this means that the young and the old are not competing for the same food. And that is significant, because it means they can live and thrive in different environments. They're not competing with one another. You don't have adults competing with the young for the same resources. So it means you can feed on like a leaf when you're young, and then when you mature, you feed on something else entirely. No competition. And that's a pretty big advantage for them. It's kind of different from a lot of other organisms. When we have, in mammals, we have milk early on. So it's kind of similar, but not quite the same thing. So the 3 major innovations leading to the success of Insecta. Senses, right? They're ridiculous. They can fly, most of them, and the complete metamorphosis that they have. Alright, so good old Hexapoda. A lot of groups in here. We're not going to talk about most of these. We're going to go through and do some select, ones, and we're not going to learn specific individual names, so we just have to know examples of which ones are this. So, no example species we talk about that are part of Insecta or part of Hexapoda. And then know some of their traits that you would expect to see. Okay, so looking at head and mouth parts. Here's some heads for some common organisms. So a mosquito, a grasshopper, a fly, and then a lepidopteran. It's weird there's no blurb for that. That's a butterfly, in case you didn't know. Lepidopteran is a butterfly. You should have known that from lab last week. But yeah. So we can see they're crazy complicated mouth parts. Man, look at that thing. Look at that grasshopper. Grasshoppers are never really bothered by it. When you look at one up close, it's kind of unnerving. Like all the mandibles and stuff they have. It's like, ooh, get away from me. Compare that to a housefly, which doesn't look that bad. There's a movie called The Fly. It stars Jeff Goldblum. and he actually slowly transforms into a fly. I've never seen it. I heard it's pretty disgusting, so I'm good. But if you're looking to mix things up these days, try it out. Let me know how it is. I'm going to see a mosquito friend there, and so a wide variety of adaptations, right? So you have some that are made for chewing, some for feeding on long structures like a butterfly, right? Feeding on nectar, mosquito, long proboscis for penetrating and absorbing blood, or just eating something else, or getting pollen that it may feed upon. Eyes. So compound eyes are a big part of the insect world. And so this is different from our kind of eye. We have one lens. They have many, and so we have a higher focused vision, but theirs is different in the fact that it's less focused but very strong in like movement. So they can pick up on movements very well, and they can see color. The color they see varies depending on species, but they can see it. And their structure overall is it's very different from us. So they have like one pigment cell that lines up with one lens. So we don't have that sort of setup at all. So you have this ommatidium thing, which has its own photoreceptor, cornea, lens, etc. We just have one big lens, one big cornea, and then a bunch of other structures on the side. So it's very different. Alright, and now we have the gas exchange system of these things. Going into some systems. And so this is their breathing system. So you have air. It'll enter into something called the spiracle. And so one thing to keep in mind with insects are this system is limited to body size. So you can't get too big, and then it won't work right because it's based on diffusion. And so this is the limiting factor on their size. And back in the day, in different environments, they were able to be bigger because the atmosphere is different. And they were able to support the higher body sizes. But now that that's changed, it's not as possible anymore. So you really shouldn't see like a 6-foot dragonfly anytime in the future. You never know though. Fingers crossed. But for now, you're probably okay. But going down the bottom left, you see the spiracles, those openings. And so that's where gas will enter. It'll go into something called the tracheal trunk. And then that'll diffuse through a variety of tubes. They keep getting smaller and smaller, and they eventually will reach every body part and supply that tissue with oxygen that it needs, and allow for gas exchange. So to get rid of the bad stuff, bring in the good stuff. And so to help support this thing and hold it open, these air tubes, they have a structure called ctenidia, and you can kind of see it in the middle of the picture. It's like a coil-looking thing, and so it's there for support. Prevents these tubes from collapsing because all they're doing is carrying oxygen or gases, so it's not going to force them open. We have cartilage that surrounds our trachea that keeps it and forces it to stay open, but they need their own thing, and so they have ctenidia that allow for that. And so it allows for the movement and stretching and expanding of these structures without full collapse or kinking up of the structures, like a wrinkled up water hose. And so it's a very fascinating little structure. And so, what we have is this tracheal system. It's just a series of tubes that go around, connect all the body tissues, and then you have the spiracles that allow oxygen to come inside these tubes in the first place. One of the limiting factors is you have a lower affinity for gas exchange to bind at cold temperatures, so that's why you may see more insects in more tropical, warmer environments. Less so in the cold because they can't breathe as well. That's why there are limitations. And so they also have hemocyanin, so they have blue blood as well, like another group we talked about. They have an open circulatory system, so again they have oxygen exchange comes in and just kind of diffuses across the blood, across the body. And then some insects can control the movement of air, so they have smooth muscle around those spiracles, so they either collapse or to expand, depending on the needs of the organism. But yeah. And so something else they have is Malpighian tubes, and these are used to make urine. And so they have, they're used to release this urine, and so along the way it's passed into the hindgut, and this is significant because in the hindgut, it allows for any sort of like last-minute reabsorption of water, ions, or anything else before it's released. And this is actually pretty similar to us. Like we reabsorb a lot of stuff before we full-on make pee. So a lot of reabsorption occurs, and they have the same thing. It's just using different structures. So Malpighian tubes are used to secrete primary urine. And you want to. All right. So let's get at some diversity. Dragonflies, damselflies. I always like dragonflies. One, they have dragon in their name. That's awesome. And then, I don't know, they look cool. And so they're predatory. You can see one feasting upon an organism down there on the left. They have a cool body structure, I think. I actually have one on my desk in my office at work. I found it back in the fall. And it was just dead on a stairway. I was like, you know what, this is cool looking. I'm going to keep it. So I've had it in a bag in my office ever since. A lot of species, they have short antennae. Well-developed eyes, so they're trying to hunt, right? So they need to be able to see. Their wings can move independently of each other. Been around a long time, hundreds of millions of years. These things have been around, and they're overall pretty strong flyers. They're predators, so they're carnivorous, and they feed on other insects. And so if you have dragonflies around an area, that usually means it can be a reflection of water quality, because what they feed upon needs good water quality. So if you have bad water, you'll see less dragonflies. If you have So about cicadas. So let's focus on them for a minute. I actually was able to experience one of these year cycles, and this is what they're famous for, is these periodic cycles. We have these random booms and bust periods of cicadas. So they just live underground for, a long time, up to 17 years, and they'll just burst out of the air, burst out of the ground, and they just kind of take over as they complete their life cycle, fly around for a couple weeks, reproduce, then die. And once they're out and about, it's just a swarm of cicadas. And it makes so much noise, and they just sing. It's just almost deafening. That sounds like there should be a video. Watch it. It's cool. But yeah, they're really crazy in what they're able to pull off. And so it's really impressive what they're able to pull off. And so they can get super loud. Like I heard this and when I got to experience a little bit ago, but the adults can be active for a few weeks. It just depends on the species. And so one of the strategies behind this mass swarm like this is it overwhelms predators. So there's only so much they can eat at a time. And so the idea is like they may eat 10 of us, but they won't eat 100 of us. So the rest of us will live on and reproduce. So it's just kind of overwhelming the predators with numbers to try and allow them to survive and reproduce with them. And so it's actually one of the things that happened back when people were first colonizing North America is this wasn't a thing. Like nobody knew what was happening. And so like all of a sudden you have these random swarms of cicadas everywhere, and people are freaked out about it. It's like, where did these things come from? And they're just sticking around, living, coming out of the ground, like it's unnerving. Like imagine if you had no idea this happened. You moved into a new area on a boat, set up shop, try not to die from food loss and winters and everything, disease and everything else. And the next thing you know, you wake up one morning, got these insects flying around over the place, buzzing loudly, crawling all over you. And it's like, you'd be like, what is happening here? Like, who have I cursed? Who's cursed me? This is from pictures from my own time. So I was in Pennsylvania visiting some family back in 2013 now. And so they were experiencing, and this is actually pretty cool because this is on the 17-year cycle. So I just happened to be up there for that 17-year burst. The next one's not going to happen until 2030. And so it's a big eruption of cicadas, and they were everywhere, man, like all over the place. You couldn't go outside, and if you went outside, like, you would hear this loud just noise constantly going after you. It was deafening. They would attack. My mom's Isabel, or her name's Isabel. It's a little Chihuahua. My grandfather would go outside, and they'd run into his head all the time. And it just corpses everywhere. You could see the cocoons where they burst out of as adults. And you would just see them fly around and crazy. And then you would also just see them just fall off and just die because they've reproduced. It's over. They're not very good flyers, so they'll fly and bump into all kinds of stuff. It was just, man, it was hilarious. It was such a unique. And here's a picture of all the husk of the cocoons where they just burst out and just went crazy. I'm like, that is a lot of cicadas, man. It's insane. Yeah, there's a video. So you should see the video. I should be in the playlist for this. And here's another one on a leaf. So you can actually see a cocoon on the leaf. I actually gave one of my friends, he got married around this time, and he's a big into insects. I actually gave him a bag of these cicadas for him to look at and study. He was appreciative. Alright, anyway, that's enough of cicadas. I think they're fascinating creatures. Maybe get to see one. If you have a cicada story, let me know in the comments, or the forums. Or the Discord, right? Use that thing. Share some stories. But now let's talk about Hymenoptera. You don't actually have to know the order name, right? But there's a variety of insects and organisms found here. Bees, wasps, and ants, right? The oddball. Like, wait, ants. But yeah, these are three. And so one thing that pops up with ants is they're incredibly fascinating. I've got a big fascination with ants. I'd like to read more about them. But one of them is that they actually have discovered recently that they have paramedics, or at least kind of an analog to it. And so they'll actually go around, in these big ant colony battles where they go out and just fight each other for territory. And so they'll try and save ants. And there are some that will actually refuse care because they realize, I'm dead, don't waste your resources trying to save me, which is super unusual, and like, wow, this is happening. And this is one of the first times non-human animals have been observed, like, trying to bring injured members of the group back to health like this, which is very, very unusual. So, I mean, like, man, there's always something cool with an insect. There's something cool for everybody, really. There are actually some people that have, like, some weird, big, like, great horned beetles, like, as pets, which is kind of cool. But another thing with bees is, of course, I think we saw this in our group presentation, the waggle dance that can be used. So it's this big, elaborate behavior they use to communicate. That type of dance they do, and some of the different angles of the rotations can help determine and let them know, like, where exactly to find the food, where the pollen is, so they can build it back and make honey. So I think that's kind of cool. So it's waggle dances. It was one of the classics of studying animal behavior in Europe. He actually studied bees in that way. I can't remember what his name was. It wasn't Tinbergen, but it was somebody like that. But yeah, he was a big bee researcher. So yeah. Okay, another order, beetles. Lots of different types of beetles here. Some cool, some I guess a little less cool, but and so tons of species here. Over 400,000 species, could be up to 1 million, which is knocking on the door with nematodes in terms of species numbers. Pretty cool Pokemon called Heracross. It's like a beetle. Found all over the world, all sorts of habitats. Insanely successful group. They just, they just dominate. They can do anything from predatory type relations. They can eat plants. They can be pollinators. They can be parasites. They can feed on dead things. They can break down dead things. They do have complete metamorphosis. And then, of course, you had beetle mania, which wouldn't have happened without the beetles, of course. So there's that whole blurb. I mean, it inspired one of the most popular music groups of all time because they were all young amateur entomologists. It was like, wait a minute, we could do music too. So they made all their songs about actual beetles. So they know the famous Great Horned Beetle song. So it's pretty fascinating. Not really. The Beatles, they were inspired by the Beatles that much. I don't know where the name came from. But here's some other ones. So walking leaves, walking sticks. These don't look real. Flat out, they look fake. I mean, look at this thing. It just looks like a stupid twig that moves. This had to freak somebody out the first time they saw it. It's like, oh my god, what sweet hell is this? That tree is moving. Word has it that's what inspired Tolkien with Ents, is he saw a walking stick inside. And I was like, oh man, I got an idea. Ents. I'm just kidding, I made that up. But it makes sense though. Something like leaves. That's a good adaptation to have. You don't want to get eaten. If you're going to hang out in a tree, look like that leaf, and you might not get eaten by a predator. A leaf eater might get you, but I mean, I guess you can always move away. So it's really remarkable the type of camouflage they've come up with. Sorry. These are also found in many different types of habitats, so all over the place you can find them around here. So they're pretty unusual. They don't really have a complete metamorphosis. I mentioned that's one of the big traits of Insecta, but like not all of them have it. This is one that doesn't. And they also have like some of the record times for longest copulation periods out there. They will stay attached for hours to days, even weeks. They can stay attached and undergoing their mating behavior to ensure that this is going to be my kid here. So that whole thing. So it's impressive. They got some records for that sort of thing. They also have a secondary line of defense. It's like if they're startled, they do like a startle display to try and freak somebody out. It's like, oh, you're trying to eat me? Boom! One more display so I don't try and die. Decent adaptations. Alright, next up, mantids, another order. Termites and cockroaches are actually pretty close relatives to the mantid. Who would have guessed? They were considered to have supernatural powers back in early civilizations, but they do not. They were, at one point though, they have these big triangular type heads, big eyes, movable necks for sure. They can have wings, cannot, just depends. Great camouflage, ambush predators. So what they do is they just wait, and they're waiting for something to come by. Maybe, like we saw, I think a video of like a moth land on one of these things, and the mantis just there and pops it, and then eats it. They do have like the praying mantis thing, comes from like the way they have their arms folded, just kind of hanging out in their posture. And there's mantids in all of these, but they're so blended in, like, we can see them, but there's definitely some organisms that can't, and they just get popped and just get eaten. So, take that. Also, one of the more recent Pokemon games, so they finally had Mantis Pokemon. Well, one of the Mantis Pokemon that was introduced. It was alright, I liked using it. And here's some more Mantids, also Scyther, OG, from the OG era. Big fan of some Scyther. Love his Mega form. I have a shiny one that's pretty cool. But we have some of these other types of mantids. So again, lots of little displays. We'll do this little threat bluffing display. So again, competition and direct fighting amongst individuals of the species is trying to avoid it. You said you want to do these little bluffing displays to see who looks more intimidating and who will back down, because it's better for everybody. Live to fight another day. And so they'll do that sort of move. So if you see one doing this, it's probably bluffing at somebody. Or I don't know, it's just messing around. They do that. And you can also see one feeding on a lizard there in the bottom right. And there's also a pretty cool behavior they do. There'll be a video of in the playlist about sexual cannibalism. So after copulation, the female eats the male. Cool. Also, sometimes mantids can inspire Hollywood. If you need a good source for a monster, amateur filmmakers out there, short stories, video game artists, who knows, artists in general, looking for a good villain. Look at nature. Some of these have definitely inspired some monsters in the cinematic world. So the alien monster, look at that thing. It's just like a mantis, same deal. Just as big, and it eats people and it lays eggs inside of people and they burst out, which is pretty unnerving. Mantids don't do that. And then lastly, of our diversity groups, butterflies and moths. These are one of the more popular groups around. We know a ton of species for this group because People love looking at them, so a lot of amateur people have studied butterflies, so we know a ton of them. They're very important because of the economy, because a lot of people will go and flock to see butterfly gardens or just other like butterfly exhibits. Just people love butterflies, they're just pretty. I saw one the other day and I was helping somebody move, and I was like, hey, look, a butterfly, and it was captivating. It made the day better. They have scales that cover their bodies, and this can be used for their colors. So by modifying these scales can result in some neat shapes, which gives them crazy patterns and colors. So remember from the video with the butterfly wing demonstration, hopefully you saw that. That's this, so them scales in action. Obviously, complete metamorphosis, right? Caterpillar coming along. In the top right, you may think that Butterfree looks odd, but is in fact a shiny version of a Butterfree. So it's the rare alternate phenotype for Pokemon. So that's why I put that one there. I'm a big shiny hunter myself. And the Caterpie I was always a big fan of. I'm not gonna lie, when I was a kid, I cried when Butterfree was released by Ash. I've not watched that episode again. And it's been 20 years later. I will never watch that episode again because it made me cry. So it makes me sad. I like Butterfree. I don't want it to go away. Anyway, I never let my Butterfree go. It stays with me all the time. I've had Butterfree for almost 16 years. And Ruby and Sapphire, from when I first caught it, one in there, I've kept that sucker since. I don't know if that game had it, but anyway, I always keep my Pokemon and Butterfree. Unless it's shiny honey, then you ditch them like it's another. That's enough Pokemon talk. But butterflies are very important, a variety of reasons. They help us with pollination, with flowers. People like looking at them. Also, you have caterpillars, which are just beasts of just absorbing leaves, which can be devastating on plants and products. So they have an adverse effect on the economy at times. So yeah, they're just kind of unusual. Moths can fold their wings. Butterflies can fold their wings in a different way, and moths tend to hold them in a different fashion. Butterflies are typically larger and have more colorful patterns than moths do. Compared to them, butterflies are usually active during the day, moths are really nocturnal. But there's some that are vice versa. There's moths that are active during the day. Moths are kind of creepy. There's a famous story. I don't know how famous it is. It's an urban legend about like a giant mothman, like in the Northeast or something. I've read some stories about it. It's pretty horrifying. It's like a human-sized moth that feeds on people or something. I don't read too much into it, but I remember one of my friends. He's from that area, and he would always tell me about it. And he'd just go on these random tangents, like 2 a.m. and like just talking about the Mothman. And I was like, all right, dude, get some sleep. But yeah, read about the giant Mothman, the urban legend. It's terrifying. Here's some more butterflies. Again, lots of species. Hey, look, it's a shiny Caterpie. Boom! A lot of different colorations in Pokemon and in real life in nature. So tons of different forms available. Some are dangerous looking. So if you see a caterpillar with a bunch of spikes coming off of it, leave it alone. Don't eat it, because it's for a reason. So they can be poisonous. So maybe especially for dogs or predators. And so they also have these little coverings, so they go in that cocoon stage, metapod, that thing. So that's kind of cool. Here's another one, the hawk moth. This one's it kind of looks like a hawk, I guess. It kind of looks like a bird. I can see him. Alright, so this is the monarch butterfly. It's common in North America, famous for its migrations down to Mexico. They're also spread to other areas. They go from Canada all the way down to South America. They've also been found in Africa and Australia. It was the first caterpillar to have its genome sequenced. And there's also, they use their coloration pattern to warn predators to not eat them because they taste bad due to what they eat as caterpillars. So feed on certain plants that build up and give them some chemicals in them, so they don't taste great to predators, so it helps them avoid predation. Good strategy. And there's another butterfly called the viceroy butterfly. Does the same thing, and they reinforce each other's coloration patterns, which is kind of cool. But yeah, so that finishes up arthropods, and yeah, so hopefully you know all these different, I know a lot of examples of hexapods, some of the unique characteristics we talked about. And what makes them different from the arthropod groups? They have the tracheid system for breathing, the tracheal system for breathing, compound eyes, malphizian tubes, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, all right, that's it for arthropods.